In this video, I will explain how to create an amortization table by hand. So an amortization table, or sometimes called an amortization schedule, shows how much of each payment on a loan goes towards principal versus interest. So let's take a look at an example. This one says, Dave takes out a $300,000 mortgage loan with a 6% annual interest rate for a 30-year term. Create an amortization schedule for this loan. So the very first step before we actually create the table is we need to figure out what is the monthly payment that Dave is going to be making on this loan. Now, here's the formula you can use to calculate the monthly payment. So the monthly payment is equal to P, the principal or the total amount of the loan, times R divided by N, where R is the annual interest rate and N is the number of payments per year on the loan, divided by 1 minus 1 plus R over N to the power of negative N times T, where T is the number of years on the loan. So I've gone ahead and filled in all of the values for this loan and calculated the monthly mortgage payment. I'll also link to another video that I have on how to calculate this number in a little bit more detail. That's the first step. You just need to calculate the monthly payment. Now, once you know the monthly payment, you can go ahead and create the amortization schedule. Okay, now when we create this amortization table, the first column in the table will be the month number. So for this example, we said we have a 30-year loan and there are 12 months in a year. So the total number of months that Dave will be making a mortgage payment is 30 times 12, which is 360. So there are 360 rows in our table. I've only shown the first 3 rows along with the last 2 rows, just so we don't have 360 rows to show in this table. Now, the next column is the principal. So this is the loan amount. So in the very first row, this value for the principal is going to be the starting loan amount, which we know is $300,000. So let's go ahead and label this column P for short. The next column is interest paid. So the way that we calculate the interest paid is we take the principal, so P, and we multiply that by R, the annual interest rate, over N, where N is the total number of months each year we're making a payment. So we know that R is 6%. As a decimal, that's 0.06. And N is 12 months in a year. So this value of R over N is going to be 0.06 divided by 12, which is 0.005. So really, to get this interest paid column, we're taking the principal, $300,000, and we're multiplying it by 0.005. So that turns out to be $1,500. So let's go ahead and label this column IP for short. The next column will be the monthly payment. So we calculated the monthly payment already. We found that that would be $1,798.65. And we'll notice that in every row of this table, this number does not change. So we make the same monthly payment every single month, all 360 months. So let's label this MP for short. The next column is the principal paid. So we know that we're making this monthly payment each month. To calculate the principal paid, we just take that monthly payment, let's call it MP, and we subtract the interest paid. So let's call that IP. So if we take the monthly payment of $1,798.65 and we subtract $1,500, we're left with $298.65. So that's how much of this monthly payment is going towards paying down the principal. So let's label this column P. Now the very last column is the principal balance. So we know that we started with a principal of $300,000, and in this first month, $298.65 went towards paying down the principal. So all we have to do to calculate this value is the principal minus the principal paid. So let's write P minus P. So $300,000 minus $298.65, that leaves us with this remaining principal balance. We can label this PB if we want to. So that's how we calculate the first row of values. Now for the next row, our new principal value right here will just be whatever the principal balance was in the previous row. So we're moving this value to the start of the next row. And then we repeat the whole process all over again. So to calculate the interest paid in month 2, we're just going to take this principal and multiply it by this value of R over N, which we found was 0.005. So $299,701.35 times 0.005 turns out to be this number. Then in the next column, our monthly payment, it does not change, it stays the same. And then for our principal paid, we're taking the monthly payment and we're subtracting the interest paid again. So that turns out to be $300.14. And then lastly, for our new principal balance, we're taking the starting balance right here and we're subtracting the amount that we paid towards the principal. And that leaves us with this new balance right here. And then we do the process all over again where we take this new balance and we move it to the start of the next row. And we repeat the whole process again. Now, one thing that we'll notice about an amortization table is that in the beginning, almost all of the monthly payment is just going towards the interest paid. So in this first month, we paid $1,500 in interest compared to only $298 in principal. But as we continue the loan, in the later months, we're going to see that very little of it is going towards the interest, and almost all of the monthly payment is now going towards the principal paid. So that's one feature that you'll notice about an amortization table is that the total portion of interest paid is going down while the portion of the principal paid each month is increasing. And what we'll notice in the very last row of the table, the 360th month, is that the balance on our principal, the $1,789.70, the principal portion that we paid will match that. So that means that our principal balance is finally going to be reduced to $0 in the very last month. Or in other words, we will have paid off the entire loan. So those are the calculations that you can use to create an amortization table by hand.